Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. We are going to get started promptly at 7, so thank you so much for attending the Haddam Candidates Forum hosted by Brandon Memorial Library. My name is Tom Piazza, the Library Director, and I am co-moderating this event with Library Trustee and former journalist Kent Jarrell. As a component of our community outreach and in keeping with our mission to provide information in a variety of formats, we're pleased to welcome the first selected candidates, Brenda Buzzy and Bob McGarry. Our forum topics Our forum topics were drawn from many questions submitted by individuals and by community groups. And while time doesn't permit the inclusion of all of them, please stay after the forum ends at 8:30 for complimentary refreshments, thanks to our trustees, and for the chance to meet the candidates, as well as those running for other offices who we will introduce before we wrap our program tonight. But here's Kent to explain the ground rules as we begin our forum.
Well, good evening, and first of all, rules of the road. I've been informed that all phones will be off. There will be no secret messages, and I will turn my phone off right now. Anyway, we will have a series of questions after the closing, the opening statements, which will be 2 minutes apiece. We will draw from
Are we not going to do a pledge? I don't know.
First, then we'll have a series of questions. As Tom said, we took these questions from all.
Shouldn't we?
Yeah,
I think we should. I thought that's what part of the program. But
let's stick to the issues and refrain from personal attacks. So let's go.
Do we ask?
First to the first selecting candidates. Tom is going to pick from this box.
Someone should just ask, are we going to do the pledge?
No peeking.
We have Brenda Buzzy will answer first.
So Brenda, you got the timer set. There we go. For 2 minutes, hit it.
Okay, good evening. I first want to thank Kent Jarrell and Tom Piazzi of the Brainerd Memorial Library Board and Trustees for hosting this event tonight. I also want to thank all of you for coming out here. I have what it takes to be your next first selectman. As a fourth-generation Haddam resident, I truly love this town. I graduated from here, HK High School, as well as my 2 daughters. I hold a bachelor's degree in psychology. My experience in business started when I ran a large daycare, which led me to open my own preschool here in Haddam. I have ample leadership experience, volunteering, and currently I serve on the Board of Education. During my tenure on the board, I have helped with contract writing, led union negotiations, worked with a $42 million budget, saved the district lots of money, aided in bridging the gap of communication between the board and the community, and so much more. I will bring a transparent government to Haddam, one that will listen to all residents. I know we don't always agree, but we will want similar things. I believe working together is imperative for our small town, and I want to unite Haddam for the good of our community. Serving as your first selectman, I will put people before politics. I'll bring unity, transparency, honesty, an open door policy, and an open communication for you. I will listen to your concerns and be your voice. I have read the Plan of Conservation and Development cover to cover, as well as many other town documents. I attend many of the meetings, and I've gone door to door meeting amazing people. This gives me a unique perspective on the issues in town that matter most to you. I will help take care of them. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work. Sorry, thank you.
Okay, we're going to reset. Tell me we're going to reset. Bob McGarry.
Hey. Are we going to do a pledge?
Ready to go? Go ahead, Bob.
All right, good evening, everybody. I too would like to thank you all for coming. And those of you who are taking time out of your schedule to watch on the Channel 18. I'd like to thank the library board and the trustees for hosting this event and doing the logistics arrangements. I would also like to take a minute to thank all the volunteers who make this town work. A lot of us don't appreciate it. I don't know how many of you realize it, but most of the people you're going to elect on November 5th are volunteering their time for their positions. other than the first selectman, the tax collector, and though not being up for election right now, the town clerk. None of the positions receive a full-time salary. The only other ones who get any compensation at all are board of selectmen get get a minor stipend. But all the board members, all the commission members, all the committee members, all the study group members, they're all volunteers. And then as you look beyond that, I've highlighted in my concerns emergency services volunteers who we think of, but there's many more than that. It's the library board, the park and rec, the field park association, the historical association. So many people who volunteer their time to help us make this community what it is. Without them, frankly, our community, as with most small communities, would cease to exist as we know it. So thank you to all of them as well. I think most of you have probably seen my bio. It's been published in a few different places, so I will just briefly go over it. I didn't grow up in Higham. I grew up in Middletown. Went to Xavier High School, went from there to Coast Guard Academy, where I graduated with a degree in civil engineering. Served on active duty in the Coast Guard for 20 years, starting as an ensign in 01 right out of the academy, rising to the rank of commander when I retired in 1996. My very first job out of the academy, I was supervising 40 people on a ship's deck force, and I've done much more since then, and I'm well out of time. Thank you.
So let's go to the first question, and Bob, you'll answer the first question first, and then of course Brenda will get her chance. It will be 1:30 to answer the question. The first question, again, this is collected from a variety of questions that we're getting from both Tom and the library. We begin with a budget question. What is your position on Haddam's use of long-term bonds to pay for infrastructure and other projects? Are we increasing our debt burden to keep the mill rate at its current level, but just kicking the can down the road for future taxpayers to bear?
All right, it's a very good question. I'm sure a lot of you have read the recent article in the Bulletin, the commentary by Alan Aram. He's an author I respect. I know he does his homework. I agree with his concerns that we've got to realize that even if interest rates are low, borrowing costs money, bonding costs money. We all know, you borrow $100, you don't pay back 100, you pay back 105 or 103 or whatever it is. As a rule, I don't like taking long-term loans out, but I would also say that, and I would ask anyone in this room, there are times when long-term debt is appropriate. I know I certainly haven't, and I don't know many of you who probably have, bought your house without a mortgage. I know many of us, when we buy a new car, particularly given the prices that we face today, float a loan for that new car. It's just a fact of life that some things are extremely hard to save up enough money for to pay for. The town, to an extent, has gotten itself in that position. And plus, a lot of the things we used to be able to buy with cash are now extremely expensive, and it makes it harder and harder to do. I think bonding is going to have to be used to get us out of some of the financial problems we're in. If you look at our capital plan for the next 3 years, instead of being in its normal $500,000 to $750,000 range, it's 1.3, 1.7, $1.8 million. It's going to be tough to get through that without bonding. So though I don't like to use it, it's appropriate to use it. It can save you money when you use it. Thank you.
Brenda, the question to you, 1.5 minutes, and this again is on the use of long-term bonds to pay for infrastructure and other projects. Okay, here we go.
Thank you. There definitely is a place for bonding in our financial wellhouse. Their infrastructure is really pretty significantly bad right now. While I've been walking the streets a lot and seeing and hearing firsthand. So I think there is a place for fixing and repairing our roads, and the way to do that is to bond that. I'm not sure about bonding vehicles, especially buying all of them at one time. I don't fully understand why that occurred, because there's a lot of, I wouldn't bond my car or mortgage my car for 15 years, but there is a place for it in our for our infrastructure and things like that. Thank you.
Okay, our second question will begin with Brenda and then go to Bob. And the question is, what are the most important projects for Haddam road repairs, moving the public works garage, senior citizen services, getting better cell service. How do you prioritize these?
All of those are very, very important. I think infrastructure is first and foremost. We need to take care of finishing projects like the bridge and Dublin Hill. There's a lot of roads that do need to be repaired, but all of those areas do need work. The seniors definitely need some attention because the 60-year-old population, that's 36% of our Haddam's population, and they receive only 2%, 1.2% of our budget. So we really need to look at our seniors. We need to open the senior center 5 days a week. We need to have the senior bus back to 5 days a week. So the seniors need things. Every area that you have mentioned needs attention, and will get my full attention. That's good. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Likewise, Bob,
Tom, can I ask you
priorities.
to repeat the floor again?
Sure. So road repairs, moving the public works garage, senior citizen services, better cell phone service. Question is simply the priorities for projects in Haddam.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I agree with Brenda that our infrastructure is a major concern. I mean, we all drive on the roads, we know what condition they're in. The town commissioned a study last year by an engineering firm to look at the roads. They graded them, and basically we have about 100 miles of road, and of 130 of them were in extremely poor condition. We all know it, we drive on those roads, have got to be addressed. Beyond that, we have other infrastructure needs. Perhaps with the purchase of HES, we have opportunity to put septic in to deal with the wastewater issues in Haddam Center, and that's all infrastructure. And a lot of the other improvements we want to make depend on infrastructure, so the infrastructure is very important. Seniors need our support. I want to work with the seniors in the senior center to see what services we can expand, how we can expand those, and how we can do them properly with everyone in mind. Cell phone service, I agree it's a public safety issue. I know so far the town has done what it can to get cell phone towers erected, and right now that project is waiting for the individual cell phone companies to express interest in it. I do intend to keep on top of that, and hopefully we can improve the cell phone service, particularly along the 154 corridor. And finally, the town garage, to me, that's another infrastructure improvement. It's something that has to be done. The current garage is not suitable, perhaps to the point of unsafe, and we do need to relocate it.
For our third question, Bob, this will come right back to you, and you kind of mentioned this already, but what should Haddam do with the old Haddam Elementary School?
Well, that's interesting. I love it when I've been going door to door and people ask me, well, what's your vision for Haddam Elementary? My answer is quite simple. I don't have one. And I don't because I don't think it's appropriate. And I say that because, and I know there's a gasp in the audience, because leaders are always supposed to have a vision. Well, in this case, I take a different view. There's going to be a group put together at the end of this month, was the original timeline. I don't know if that's changed. To follow a process that Bill Warner used in Farmington that was very successful in getting ideas for redeveloping part of that town. A 2 or 3 day process. It looks in depth on the site, on what's been done previously, and then starts to generate ideas, and it's done under the guidance of professionals to keep those ideas workable. Not like all the other studies that have actually Sean, you had mentioned, and I agree with, that we studied Haddam Center to death. It's time to do something. A lot of those other studies ended with, and all we have to do to make this wonderful stuff happen is put in a $15 million waste treatment plant. We know that's not going to happen, but we do know we can get septic at Haddam Elementary. As far as the use of the building, again, this group is going to come up with a vision and thoughts for all of the Haddam Center area. As your elected official, I believe my most important job is to represent what you want. So in this case, I don't think it matters what I want for Haddam Center. I'll tell you what I really want for Haddam Center is when you mention it, people say, yeah, I really like going there, but how we get there, I'll back and do whatever the group, which is all of you, contribute to and want to have happen.
Okay, Brenda, and for you, the same question. What should Haddam do with the old Haddam Elementary School?
Well, first of all, I think they should reopen it as an elementary school, but that's not realistic. I mirror much of what Bob has to say. We need to work with Bill Warner And there is a meeting on October 30th and November 1st to have a charrette and discuss what the people want to do with Haddam Elementary School. Of course, I have my ideas and you have your ideas, but we need to come together. And that's really what I'm all about, is working together and listening to each other and figuring out what the best viable thing is for that building. I was able to walk the building a few weeks back, and I thought I'd be really sad because I fought really hard to keep it open. But I wasn't sad because I could feel there's a lot of life left in that building. There's a lot of bones. And we are so lucky to have discovered the soils and sand of Haddam Elementary School to use for public septic. And that will bring in other infrastructure, other businesses to our center of town to make it more viable. So we are lucky that we have the building and that we own it. Now we need to work together and figure out the best solution for it together.
Thank you. So the fourth question, what is your position on economic development? How can we bring new businesses to Haddam and keep the current businesses we have? And this is back to Brenda first, please.
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the question?
Sure. What is your position on economic development? How do we bring new businesses to Haddam and keep the current businesses we have?
Bringing economic development is kind of a key to improving the viability of not just Haddam Center, but Tylerville. Tylerville just got their water. They need to fill their empty buildings with businesses. But first and foremost, we do need, as the end of the question states, we do need to support and groom and take care of our current businesses. And all the townspeople really need to utilize the town, all of the businesses that we do have in Tylerville and Hignum and Haddam. We need to use those.
Thank you. Again, Bob, position on economic development. How do we bring new business to Haddam, keep the current businesses that we do have?
In Field of Dreams, the theme in that was if you build it, they will come. I kind of view economic development as a twist on that, and I would say it's if they come, they will build it. We need to be able to draw people into Haddam. I think particularly with the acquisition of the school and what can be done in Hignum Center, we have a real opportunity to start drawing people down there for activities, for festivals, for tie into recreational activities in the area. And as people come into an area, that attracts business. Now beyond that, I agree completely with Brenda. We've got to support the businesses we have. I have talked to not every, but almost every business owner in town so far. I've gotten their thoughts. I mean, not surprisingly, Hignum Center, their issues are water and sewer, so we've got to take a look at that. Tylerville, they are encouraged by the fact that water is now available, or will be shortly. The finishing touches are being put on it as we speak. And that offers, I think, a great opportunity for development there. Beyond that, we also have to look at, and this is probably always true when you talk to businesses, the permitting process. Businesses talk about delays and holdups, and while I'm sure some of those are legitimate, there probably are ways to streamline that process just to make it easier for a business to be a business here in Haddam.
And the fifth question, and this will be Bob first. Could Haddam benefit from regionalization or sharing of services? Public Works, ambulance, youth and family services, and other services.
I look at regionalization with some degree of skepticism, quite frankly, because of our experience with the regional school district. Regionalization to me works if you set it up right. There are, I think, a number of ways you can do that, but you have to be very careful of it. For example, I think ultimately our ambulance service is going to be regionalized. There simply are not enough volunteers in town to support it, and at the same time we're supporting the volunteer ambulance services in other towns with mutual aid calls. We're going to have to regionalize to get enough people to do that. The towns do explore with each other. I've been in some of the meetings where they're exploring shared services as a method of regionalization. I support that. I'm very skeptical of creating any sort of a regional authority, whether that's for fire protection, like some places I've lived, or schools, or municipal services or anything else, because I think at that point we do start to lose control over our tax dollars. So we have to cooperate with others, we can benefit from cooperating with others, but we have to do it wisely.
And Brenda, for you, could Haddam benefit from regionalization or sharing of services?
I believe 100% that we could save a lot of money, not formally regionalized, but working with East Haddam, with Chester. I've already spoken, in Killingworth, I've already spoken to a few different people, and I have some great ideas with recruiting and retaining fire and ambulance volunteers. We could work buying sand and soil together, and that would really decrease the cost of those items. The road work, the public works, we absolutely could save a lot of money if we work together. And we need to find, even if it's $1,000 here or $10,000 here, it adds up. And so I do believe, and I will, work with our area towns.
Thank you. So this question will go back to Brenda. Tylerville is now on the way to getting water piped in. What are your thoughts about bringing water and sewer service to Higginham, its cost, and the development of Higginham?
Sewer in the center of town would cost millions, like $12 million, and we don't need it. And we're lucky to have Bill Warner discover alternatives for us, which is the public septics. So we do not need to bring those into, we don't need to bring septic into Higginham Center.
And likewise, Bob, I'll repeat since it's a little long. Tylerville is now on the way to getting water piped in. What are your thoughts about bringing water and sewer service to Higginham, its cost, and the development of Higginham?
I think if you look at wastewater disposal, it is critical if we're going to thrive in Higginham Center. But as Brenda said, it doesn't have to be a multi-million-dollar wastewater treatment plant. Having the property at HES plus the town green affords us the opportunity to put in septic systems, which is a much lower cost, much lower ongoing cost, and that can be charged back on a fee-for-use basis to the businesses and other places that are using it. So I think that is the viable answer to us for wastewater disposal in Higginham Center. I will admit I was a little surprised talking to business owners in Higginham Center that almost every one of them mentioned water. I didn't realize there was that much of a water problem there. Now, while you can filter most things, or so I've been told, out of well water to make that safe, the other aspect, and honestly I never would have thought of this one, but I heard it from a few businesses, is their cost of fire protection is exorbitant fire insurance because there's no water mains in the town. In fact, GCI Outdoors, I was there a couple of weeks ago, they were kind enough to show me around the facility. If I remember the numbers right, they've got like a 93,000 gallon water tank in there to supply their sprinkler system. An enormous cost to them. Frankly, I'm surprised they didn't put windows in it and stock it and sell tickets to the Higginham Aquarium, but it is an issue that has to be addressed. And I think water in the center is something we have to seriously think about.
The final question, and this will be for you, Bob, first. Should we have a full-time city manager in Haddam?
It's another easy answer for me. I don't know. I understand the reasons that people have suggested it, quite honestly, with the first selectman churning every 2 years. You know, by the time you just start figuring out the job, it's time to run for another term, and you may or may not get it. And I pity the individuals who every 2 years their boss potentially changes. That's a lot of disruption. I think that's part of the reason of the driving force that we ought to think about a town manager. Also, frankly, even a small town like ours is a large, complex organization, 40 employees, $8 million town operating budget. That's a lot for someone to handle. So there are arguments for a town manager. However, I am also skeptical of a town manager for a number of reasons. One, we're going to be one of the smallest towns in the area, if not the smallest, to have one. What's the talent pool look like for that? We're probably not going to get a mid-career, well-experienced town manager. We're probably either going to get, most likely, someone who's just starting and using this as a stepping stone to gain experience, or perhaps, if we're extremely lucky, someone who's decided they've had enough of the big city, they have lots of experience, and they're looking for doing it in a small town. Odds are, we're not going to get that person. I do look forward to see what the Charter Revision Committee comes up with. I do look forward to seeing the rationale, and based on that, I'll make a final determination. I'm not against it right now, but I'm skeptical.
Brenda?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yes, of course. Should we have a full-time city manager in Haddam?
The answer is unequivocally no. We are too small of a town to pay a large salary for a person to run the town for us. It would take away the democracy of us choosing who is your leader. Also, a town manager would mirror what the Board of Education has in the superintendent. And if you get a bad one in there, it's hard to get rid of them. And sometimes they have too much autonomy, they have too much control, and that's not good for us. And I think it should be the people's choice, and not just one, or a committee choosing who runs. There's a lot of issues to that in itself. I would also add to that we have 5 selectmen and 1 first selectman. I would like to see that change in the charter also. Thank you.
Thank you. We actually have time for one more question than we thought. So we're going to go to Brenda first, and if you can please name, in your opinion, 1 weakness and 1 strength of our community.
One very strong weakness right now is that we're very divided. We're very divided, and it's really not getting us anywhere, and we need to stop. We need to stop the nonsense on Facebook. We need to stop dredging up and being mean to each other. It really needs to stop, because we're not going to get anywhere. We need to unite, and we need to work together as one, because we're just going to spin our wheels and keep doing the same thing over and over again. So I think that the deficit right now is that we're not kind to each other, and we need to make that change and be nice to each other. A strength that we have is that we have an awesome town. We have a beautiful, beautiful town, and we're very blessed, and we need to utilize it more. We need to use our resources with connecting the river with the cove, in Haddam with the reservoir, make it connectability, bring people in. I really have a lot of ideas for ecotourism. So there is a lot. We're very, very blessed and very lucky to live in such a wonderful, wonderful town.
Thank you. And Bob, same question, please.
Same question, and honestly, the answer is going to be pretty much the same. I agree completely with Brenda that the biggest weakness we face now is... Sorry.
That's okay, cheers.
The biggest weakness we face now is the divisiveness between us. I don't expect we're all going to hug and sing Kumbaya every day. It doesn't get you anywhere. If we all agree and we're all in the room, there's no need for all of us to be here. But conversely, when we disagree, if we can't talk to each other about these things and respect each other's opinions and come to better and different ideas, then there's no sense any of us being in the room. It's when we have different ideas that we can express that makes progress. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see the divisiveness tamped down. I would like to see things toned down on social media, but I think that's a long shot to even ask for it. But most importantly, we have to learn how to work together. We can disagree, but let's disagree civilly. You've probably heard that a lot. You may be sick of it, but I'm honest with it. We need to be able to disagree and not be disagreeable with each other.
And the strength?
And the strength, again, to me, the strength, surprisingly, since I've talked about bad people, is the good people we have in Haddam, which is the vast majority of us. If we come together as a community, put on great events like Haddam River Days, like the Haddam Neck Fair, and other activities. We're blessed with the Connecticut River, a beautiful scenic area. The town has a lot to offer on that positive side. And if we can get together and work together, I'm sure we can make great strides. We've got problems and challenges facing us, but I'm sure we can overcome them. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to final statements, 2 minutes for each of you. And Bob, we're going to go right back to you. 2 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to say in closing, and I touched on it previously, that again, the town is a large, complex organization. I have experience running large, complex organizations. You've got to think as a function of the first selectmen as being in 2 main areas, at least that's the way I clump them together. You've got dealing with the major issues of the day, and we've talked about most of those already, but you also have to be able to manage the day-to-day affairs of the town. Manage the 40 employees, properly spend the $8 million budget, deal with other towns when you're talking about what are we going to do about regionalization, or how are we going to handle ambulance calls, and a plethora of other things. I've had that experience of running large organizations. I've had experience of having to work with state agencies, with federal agencies to make things happen. I believe I have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to properly carry out the roles and duties of first selectman. Again, since I've got about a minute, the other thing I want to mention here is the importance of local elections. You know, it kind of baffles me if you look at elections that the turnout rate is always the lowest at the local elections. It's somewhat better for state, and then we all save our vote for the big one for the presidential years. It's a local election. You are in November going to be electing people who make decisions in their roles that affect your life every day. The quality of the roads you drive on, the quality of the schools your children go to, the cost of those schools, whether there's anyone there to answer 911 when you call, whether the town makes improvements or not. Take some time to get to know the candidates. Most of you probably know some of the candidates here and know them well, not just what you've read about us on Facebook or in our campaign literature. But you're no farther than a phone call or two away from somebody who does know us if you don't. Take the time, pick the best candidates. Please get out and vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Brenda, your closing statement, please.
Our town is truly amazing, from our traditional town celebrations such as the Memorial Day Parade, the Haddam Fair, and River Days, to our natural town gems like Swan Hill, Connecticut River, Higginham Cove, and so much, much more. But it's not only the beauty of our town that makes it so great. It's the people, from our youngest generation to our town elders. During my recent door knocking, I met many great people, but two families come to mind, Kyle and Shauna, who moved to town about a month ago and have an 11-month-old baby. Joseph and Teresa, who have an infant and a 3-year-old. In addition to these young families, my daughter Rachel and her husband are looking to buy a house and start a family here. Our town is growing and thriving. I agree with the POCD. It says we need to enhance the visual appearance and economic vitality of Higginham. We have a beautiful town. One gentleman described it as a living postcard, and I agree with him. Haddam is a great place and we need to keep it going. There are many things to be done. As a driven leader, former business owner, I have what it takes to be the first selectman. You know my dedication to Haddam and to you. I am your voice. I am honored and enthusiastic to serve Haddam. With your votes, I will create an honest, friendly, approachable, and knowledgeable government for Haddam. I will put people before politics. I am the right choice for Haddam. Please vote for me, Brenda Buzzy, on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob McGarry and Brenda Buzzy.
Thank you very much. And hold that in. Thank you. So I want to introduce candidates who we're not ignoring, who we're saving for this part of the program. In order, from where I'm sitting, Sean Moriarty, Kate Anderson, Joe Rizzo, and Mark Lundgren. So these are our candidates for selectmen, and we're going to follow a similar format with the same questions.
Except that the answers will be a minute long because we have 4 candidates. So we'll have a 2-minute opening and then 2 minutes closing. And now let's go to the hat, the box. So going first, and we'll kick them all and put them in order here.
So the first is going to be Joe Rizzo.
Okay.
Next is Sean Moriarty. My hands in the box there. Kate Anderson. I guess we can. Yes. Not my name, that's for sure.
So Joe, would you begin your opening statement for two minutes? And the clock is going.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Brainerd Memorial Library, and thank you, Kent and Tom, my fellow candidates here, and all of you tonight for coming and watching on television. I'm an educator at Haddam High School. I teach environmental science, and I've never been really politically involved before now. And I got involved with this, with politics in town, with the closing of Haddam Elementary School, and started going to Board of Education meetings, and we formed this wonderful group of people who are sort of one of the really strong points in our town. One of the strong thing in our town is the people. So I want to help unite our town by putting a focus on outdoor resources as your selectman. Although I haven't lived in town as long as some of the other candidates, I have been here much longer. I was studying the Connecticut River as a 19-year-old in college, and I'm planning to stay here. So I have two young sons, and they play Little League. They went to Haddam Elementary School. Now one of them is at Burr, and one of them is at the intermediate school. And so I'll be here for life. We have a great property, and we're here to stay. So thank you.
Sean Moriarty, 2 minutes.
Hey, I'd like to thank Brainerd Memorial Library Board for hosting this forum. I'd like to thank you all for coming out. I've lived in Haddam for a little over 30 years with my wife. We have two children. They're both graduates of the Haddam-Kenilworth school system. I've been involved with Haddam on politics for quite some time. I served years ago on the committee that was developing the Code of Ethics. I'm also currently on the Board of Finance. I'm a Gulf War veteran. I'm a retired police captain from the city of Middletown. As a captain, I managed over 80 people, both sworn and civilian. During that time, I helped develop the police department's budget. Multi-millions, actually, that one department is greater than Haddam's municipal budget by quite a bit. I helped develop and administer that. I oversaw a lot of positive outcomes on different crisis situations. And I also work closely with many diverse community groups, uniting different viewpoints to reach a common goal. It is this experience I'll bring to the Board of Selectmen and then to the residents of Haddam that unites us in creating an even better town for us to work and live in. Thank you.
Kate Anderson, 2 minutes when the clock starts.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Brainerd Library, for hosting. My name is Kate Anderson, and I am your Republican candidate for Selectman. But like many people running this election, I'm actually registered unaffiliated. My philosophy has always been to research with an open mind and vote for the best person for the job. Just a little bit about me. I've lived in Higgin my entire life, graduated from right here in 2007. I received a full academic scholarship from Central Connecticut State University, where I earned a bachelor's degree in business marketing. I have a long history of working in Haddam. Some of you may recognize me from HK Park and Rec, where I worked at after school and summer camp for 9 years. I bought my very own house in town when I was just 23 years old, and not long after became involved in Haddam committees. I currently serve on the Economic Development Committee, Infrastructure, Charter Revision, and the Plan of Conservation and Development Implementation Committee, and I have a strong attendance record for all of these committees. I've worked on projects including revitalizing the farmers market, decorating downtown for the holidays, coordinating River Days, and running our social media pages. And between all of this, I have a full-time job too. I work as a proposal and marketing communications specialist for Gilbane Building Company, one of the largest construction managers in the nation. My primary job is to organize group responses to requests for proposals. I brought some work samples with me tonight if you'd like to see. I've helped win projects ranging from a few thousand to $150 million across the nation for both public and private clients. This role allows me to see how different municipalities think and operate, and I've developed a good understanding of construction and engineering projects, which will be important to Haddam coming up. My goal tonight is to demonstrate how my experience, knowledge, qualifications, and commitment to our town make me the best choice for the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
Mark Lundgren, 2 minutes.
Thank you. I want to thank the library for hosting tonight. In particular, thank you for allowing me to sit here because I spent the last couple of years on the Board of Finance and I asked them some tough questions and you know what? They came back with the right answers, so congratulations. I'm looking at the audience and I think this is wonderful. It's so many old friends out there and so many volunteers from firemen to Board of Selectmen to Board of Finance, planning, and so everybody is here, and I just think that's wonderful. I see a lot of old friends, and I met a new young friend this night, tonight also. So I'm a happy camper. I've been involved in town government for 40 years, and I don't point that out to belittle any of my younger opponents, but I bring some experience to the job. And there's a number of things that I would like to see us tighten up, if you will. But I think I might help the most in initiating some civic pride. We have got a number of buildings that look like they're falling into disrepair. And I want to do something about that. But all civic pride starts with the Board of Selectmen. We have to look after our own house first. And there's a few things that I'd like to see. Granted, we all want to have local meetings and whatnot. I'd like to see more meetings over in Haddam Neck, actually. So, you know, all these things will add up. But I think my experience will help the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So we're going to move on to our first question. As a reminder, it's 1 minute per reply, please. And we're rotating the order. So Joe opens, so we're going to go to the second one pick. That'll be Sean. Question is, to repeat from before, the budget question. What is your position on Haddam's use of long-term bonds to pay for infrastructure and other projects? Are we increasing our debt burden to keep the mill rate at its current level, but just kicking the can down the road for future taxpayers to bear?
Well, some bonding can be useful, but it has to be done, you know, very cautiously for fiscal responsibility. I was one of 2 no votes on this on the Board of Finance for the bonding issue that came up. Because we were bonding trucks, and trucks generally don't last the length of a bond. And I saw that as irresponsible use of our bonding, of our funds. We can't keep borrowing money for things that aren't going to last. And it turns out we're going to end up this year with about $1 million more in revenue than we anticipated, which is pretty much exactly what those trucks are costing us. So we actually had the cash to pay for them instead of paying over 2% interest over a period of time for them. So bonding, like some of the road infrastructure stuff to catch up is fine, but we need to do it wisely and effectively for fiscal responsibility.
Thank you. Kate, I'll just repeat. What is your position on Haddam's use of long-term bonds to pay for infrastructure and other projects? Are we increasing our debt burden to keep the mill rate at its current level, but just kicking the can down the road for future taxpayers to bear? 1 minute, please.
You know, I think we're going to hear a lot of the same answers tonight, and I'm going to echo what we've heard so far. You know, it is appropriate in certain circumstances. We had the bond hearing a few weeks ago. You know, we had a great turnout, but I think the bigger question is, how did we end up in this position in the first place? Why are we buying vehicles all at once because it's been put off for so long? And that's one of the things I really like to advocate for, is developing a long-term plan, a long-term strategy, so we don't end up in this position again. You know, obviously I'm young and I plan on being here for a long time, and I'd like to make it affordable for everybody to stay in town. So I think we need a long-term plan, a long-term vision. We need to look hard at our capital budget and make sure that we're appropriating money correctly so we don't run into this situation again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, would you like the question again?
Yes.
Sure.
I was that other vote at the Board of Finance that
I'm
opposed.
sorry. I'm sorry, Mark.
I'm sorry.
Nope, that was correct. My goof. Go ahead, Mark. My
So I'm
apologies.
getting a restart. All right.
You get a restart. My apologies.
There's, I guess the main reason why I voted no was why are we buying 6 trucks for somewhere around $1 million, $1.2 million in 1 year? We have a mechanic, but he's out digging trenches on one of the new backhoes. We send out a lot of repair work, and we can bring that back in-house. I would rather see possibly 1 or 2 a year, because in 10, 15, maybe even 20 years, if we're lucky, we're going to have a lot of trucks to replace all at once. And this young man over here doesn't deserve that. We don't need to turn around and bond all the time.
Thank you. And finally, Joe.
So on the bonding question, I agree with, it seems like the whole table. I was at the town meeting. I did vote no for the bonding at that meeting. What I didn't agree with about the bonding was that there were trucks there, and we're taking this long-term bond on these vehicles, which are all going to sort of deteriorate at the same rate. And the volunteers were there, firemen were there, and I don't think it was fair that their gear, their much-needed equipment was sort of combined with the bonding of these trucks and some infrastructure projects, which maybe could have been separated out. I think a little bit of a different separation of the bonding would have been appropriate if we could have, like Sean said, maybe bought the trucks with cash instead of bonding those. I think it would have been a much easier decision, much easier vote.
Thank you. Now let's go to the second question, and this will go to Kate Anderson first. What are the most important projects for Haddam? Road repairs, moving the public works garage, senior citizen services, getting better cell phone service. How do you prioritize the community's needs?
Well, I can say a minute is definitely not long enough to answer this question, but I'll try. There's so many projects going on right now, and right now it's like a puzzle. We have to find a way to make all the pieces fit together. We need a new public works garage. We have a beautiful historic jail that's sitting there unused. We have Scoville Hall that we're getting remediation grants for, brownfields grants, that has great potential. We're acquiring HES. What do we do with all these properties? And I think the most important thing right now is to continue hearing from the people. You know, we're elected to represent you. We need people to be coming out and telling us what you want these buildings to be done, what you want to see happen with these buildings. We all know roads are an issue. As Bob mentioned, we have the VHB study that outlines exactly what needs to happen. And there's so many projects going on right now, and again, all I can say is just please keep telling us what your thoughts are. We can't do this without public input. It's our community.
And for Mark, what are the most important projects for Haddam, and how do you prioritize them for the community?
We're so into rebuilding the roads that I just can't see us giving up on it now. We've come a long way. McTye Road looks like it could very well be done on time. Unfortunately, the bridge over Depot Road has run into some snags. And I guess what I want to see as far as these improvements are concerned is more community involvement. I think if we had community involvement in McTye Road, we would have would not have been surprised about the spring in the middle of it. If we had community involvement more in the bridge, we would have found out that there may not have been ledge where we thought it was, and drove up the cost and time. Cell phone service, I think, is a high priority because of the safety factor in that. And
Thank you very much. Very prompt on your end. And for Joe Rizzo, how would you prioritize the important projects for Haddam?
So I would, first priority would be the empty buildings in town, I think, for me, and also roads. So, you know, I think we have a lot of agreement at the table with a lot of these issues because they're pretty blaringly obvious when you go through town. Even walking, you know, we have some pretty bad roads around town. And I live on Dublin Hill Road, so I have to go around and take the detour every day. That is a pretty tough detour that maybe, you know, that project, I agree with Mark that, you know, maybe some public input in the first place would have helped to address those issues and make it go a little bit faster.
Thank you. And for Sean, prioritizing the projects and the needs for the town.
I think how we prioritize is to listen to what your priorities are. That's how we actually prioritize it. But for my own priorities, the roads are very important. I think we need to get money back into the maintenance line of the budget that withdrawn, and our town crew is phenomenal, and they can take care of a lot of this maintenance on their own if we just fund them properly. Another priority is the seniors. Let's get the van back up and running, back to a regular schedule, so we can actually go use the community center, the senior center, the Meals on Wheels. Let's just get that priority back up there. We seem to have lost that somehow. Cell service, 5G is all over Europe and it's coming to America. So let's see what the cell phone companies do and what their requirements are to get better service. I think that will come with this new 5G technology. That's right. Thank you.
Thank you. Our third question, we'll begin with Mark. What should Haddam do with the old Haddam Elementary School?
I've given this a lot of thought, and I have publicly made statements that I think its reuse should be in education for a couple of reasons. The main reason is that anything else than an educational use would mean that it's would have to be brought up to date because of a reuse to all codes, and that could be extremely expensive. So if we kept it as a school, there's been two good ideas that have been bandied about. One was a special needs academy, and then one also was an academy for high-tech manufacturing. I think Haddam has a history of manufacturing, and this would be a perfect fit.
Thank you. Same question to Joe. What should Haddam do with the old Haddam Elementary School?
Okay, so there's a charrette, a public forum on October 30th, excuse me, and November 1st, which, you know, we want to listen to everyone's ideas. I know I'll be there. I encourage everyone to come out and express their ideas of what we should do with that building, along with, there's going to be some openings to talk about the town garage at that time as well, from what I understand. I've heard ideas, as like Mark said, Adelbrook School is interested in the building. That is a possibility. It's something we need to talk about and look into. That would be, I think that would be a great fit. Another great fit would be a community center where we could put some of our all of our town offices maybe in one place, or have youth and family services in there. And you know, it's a great building. I was part of the original Save HES group. We tried to keep it open as a school, and you know, we the referendum on that really made us happy the town bought it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
The best use, as we've all said so far, is as a school for economical reasons. It really is. But failing that, My personal opinion on this is, we'll see what the shred says. We've shredded downtown enough, but we'll see what it says. My opinion on this is combine all of our spread out services, YFS, the community closet, the senior center, the town administrative offices. You can put them all into this building and still have wonderful spaces there for communities such as the gym, large gathering places for meetings and for events. It is a really neat space, and then we can use the buildings we've left. They can generate income either through sale or through lease, like the town office building would be a perfect place for a doctor's office. Lease that out. It's out of the way, it's quiet, it's private. So there are a lot of neat things we can do there, but let's see what the community says at the end of this month.
Thank you. And finally, Kate, please.
So as you've heard, there was a request for proposal put out to solicit consultants to help lead those charrettes. The proposals came in October 1st. I'm actually on the selection committee to help pick that consultant. At the end of the day, HES needs to be open. What do we need to open it as? That's up to you to tell us. So after these charrettes happen, I think we can go in two different directions. We do have schools that are interested in opening, and as Mark mentioned, if it's used as something other than a school, it needs to be brought up to current code, and that could be a very expensive endeavor. The other avenue you could take is having the town issue a formal request for proposal. The one that the Board of Education put out would no longer be viable. It's not good because it's not the same entity that owns it anymore. After these charrettes, it'll put us in a much better position to understand which avenue we should take.
Thank you. And the fourth question is, what is your position on economic development? How can we bring new businesses to Haddam and keep the current businesses we have? Joe Rizzo, would you start off?
Sure. Well, starting with Higginham Center, I think we really need to get it connected. It's sort of spotty, and you can't get from one place to another very easily. So infrastructure there, sidewalks, walkability, as well as walkability in Tylerville, and maybe the eventual development of the Eagle Landing area and some connection into East Haddam. Those would be sort of way down the road projects. But the Swan Hill Trails are a great resource. I've spoke to the gentleman who built Rockville Trails in Wallingford. They're mountain bike trails, and they draw big crowds. And he has worked with me to draw up some trail maps that would possibly fit there. And mountain bikers come in, they will shop at our shops, they will bring business to town and use the resources that we already have. It's very inexpensive to do, and we have lots of natural resources we're not putting to use.
Thank you. Same question to Sean. Economic development, how do we get more of it and keep what we have?
I think it's essential to keep our existing businesses. I think we need to work with the Economic Development Commission to see if they can maybe form a business group that are already established businesses that can come with ideas on how the town, we as a board, can support them. We need to advertise a little bit, advertise the space we have, especially down in Tylerville. Now that the water's coming down there, I think there's a lot of opportunity to reach out to businesses that may be looking to relocate, to expand, to come down to us. We're right off the highway down there. It's a great area to be. So I think by marketing Haddam, a good, strong marketing plan to get people in and say, hey, we're Haddam, we're here, we're open for business. We can streamline our permitting process, such as Middletown did for the FedEx building. They guaranteed FedEx permits within a year, and that's why FedEx actually came with it. So if we can streamline that permitting process and make it more business friendly, we can probably attract more businesses to town.
Thank you. Kate Anderson, economic development.
So one of the things I didn't get to mention in my intro is that I'm actually also a board member for the Connecticut Economic Development Association that brings together towns, representatives from different towns and private entities. So I do have a lot of connections and just generating ideas. We have monthly meetings and we cover the whole state. I'm also chair of our Haddam Economic Development Committee. Unfortunately, we're not operating at full capacity right now, so if anybody's interested, So we are a small group, and we do try to bring people here. You know, we had the farmers market going again this year. We had River Days. We are trying to drive people here. And like Joe said, I'm always a little surprised that we don't push our beautiful open space more. You know, that's an easy way to get people here. Connecticut's a very active state. There's hiking, there's biking, there's boating at Haddam Meadows. There's a way to drive people here, and as Bob mentioned, we need to bring people here to demonstrate to those new businesses that they would be viable if they came here.
Thank you. Mark Lundgren, Economic Development. Keep
Taxes, taxes, taxes. When we had CY and low taxes, we were booming. When we lost CY, our taxes shot up. We have got to be so much more careful with how we spend our money. Many of you, even though it's good that our mill rate didn't go up, but you have to understand, in this current budget, our spending went up 11.21%. That's uncalled for. The other thing is, again, I want to make Haddam the very best small town, but within that, Haddam is, in my view, should be the very best bedroom town. I would say that most of our citizens have to travel to get to their work out of town. And so, therefore, roads are very important. Traffic buildups and things like that.
Great, thank you. So our fifth question will begin with Sean. Could Haddam benefit from regionalization or sharing of services like public works, ambulance, youth and family services?
Yes, for a few years now, I've been strongly suggesting we regionalize some of our services, not all of them, obviously, but some of them. There are 169 towns in Connecticut all working as an island on their own, and that's just not economically sustainable in these times. Just looking at public works, you know, the purchasing power you can get from buying in bulk is incredible. You can save money there. The ambulance, we have a great ambulance service. We need to find out how to get more volunteers there by incentivizing, but we can also look at regionalization of the ambulance service. Take a look at Killingworth, Durham, and I think Middlefield share a building division. That's 1/3 of the cost per town. That's fantastic. So we have a lot of opportunities out there to save a lot of money and streamlining our processes by regionalizing.
Thank you. Kate, again, could Haddam benefit from regionalization or sharing of services like public works, ambulance, and youth and family services?
I do think there is a time where regionalization could be appropriate. I think we've all been learning how to do more with less, just in general in our everyday lives. And I think, you know, seeing how different municipalities operate, there is a lot of waste, there's a lot of inefficiency. And I can bring the private sector experience to try to see where we can streamline, where we can eliminate waste and add value. You know, besides public works and youth and family and the ambulance and the emergency services, I think there could be other areas that we could regionalize too, or just start working together. You know, we have brownfields grants. When the state or the federal government sees you working together with other municipalities, they're more inclined to donate to your cause, if you will. If we can demonstrate that we can work agreeably with the surrounding towns, I think it could go a long way for us.
Thank you. And Mark, again, your thoughts on regionalization?
Could you repeat that, please? I didn't know.
Could Haddam benefit from regionalization or sharing of services like public works, ambulance, and youth and family services?
Yeah, believe it or not, we're doing some regionalization now that a lot of people probably don't look at it as regionalization. For instance, our fire department and mutual aid. We just had an incident out on, I believe it was Hidden Lake, where there were companies from 3 or 4 different towns helping us out. So that's been ongoing for decades, if not forever, but it's tough to regionalize equipment on the road maintenance area. For instance, a sweeper. Everybody needs a sweeper at the same time of year. So how can you share it with your neighboring town? Snow plows and sand jets are the same thing. Yeah, I guess really the one thing that we're going to see relatively quickly is either regionalization of our ambulance or we go to a private enterprise.
And finally, Joe, your thoughts on regionalization?
So I think regionalization for some services can be done very carefully. Again, that makes me take a little bit of a step back when I think of the school district regionalization and what happens there sometimes. You know, it's a little bit out of our control at sometimes, so we want to be careful about the way that we regionalize. But purchasing power, like Sean mentioned, when you're regionalizing is, you know, a huge benefit. So even if we're only using it for that, like, you know, buying salt in bulk with towns around us, emergency services it's something that we definitely can regionalize. You know, we pay a contractor right now for ambulance 9 to 5 during the week, and the volunteers for ambulance get paid every call. So some of that cost could get offset by regionalizing those services as well.
And we're going to go to the 6th question now, and Kate Anderson will answer it first. Tylerville is now on the way to getting piped in water. What are your thoughts about bringing water and sewer service to Higgin and the cost?
So I've been on the infrastructure committee since it's been formed, and I've learned more about septic systems and sewage treatment plants than I ever thought I would know. As we all know, the situation dramatically changed when we acquired the HES property. Before, that wasn't on the table, so it wasn't looked at. When that situation changed, our approach had to change. So now we know that HES is viable for a community septic system. Our very wonderful town planner, Bill Warner, has a great idea to make it happen that will be within health regulations. I do think that we do need to bring that to the center of town. You know, we all operate on septic systems. A lot of those septic systems were built at the same time, which means they're all going to fail at the same time. Hearing about the water issue, I will admit that's new to me. I wasn't aware that this was an issue in Higginham Center. So now that I am aware of it, I'm looking forward to doing my research and learning just as much about water as I know about sewage and septic.
And Mark, water and sewer service in Higgin?
I think we're going in the right direction as far as the sewer system is. I totally back and support our town planner's proposal for a community septic with the fantastic soils we have at HES. That has saved us a ton of money. On the water issue, it's going to be tough as far as sprinklers for industry because we have so many various small locations, dots all over the map. Like the one out on 81, I don't know if we would extend, if we had water in Higgin Center, would it have ever extended out 81 that far? Chances are it wouldn't. So we have to be careful where we site things for water. But I understand where we're coming from, and I think we could find an aquifer that would supply some community wells not that far from Higgin Center when needed.
Joe Rizzo, the question on Higgin water and sewer.
Yeah, so Higgin water and sewer. So HES is not only a viable solution to the sewer problem, it's already there. We already own it. The septic system that is there has plenty of capacity. What we would need is a backup system because the law says we need a backup system in case that system ever fails. So we already own half. That's 50% done. We would need to build a mirror image system somewhere else, possibly under the town green, to support the HES system if it ever failed. That's what we need for the sewer, septic, I should say. As for water, I agree. We need we need to tap into an aquifer there for downtown. We need clean water there. If it's a problem, it needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Sean Moriarty.
I think we're all in agreement that the septic issue has been hopefully put to bed with the solution that Bill Warner came up with. As for the water, Mark hit the nail on the head. I think community well. I know there's probably some issues with some polluted sites down there because we were a factory town for a while, so we have some TCEs and stuff that we've run into in Tylerville and Hingham Center. So just finding a place for community well if it is needed in the future. Or I think the water supply right now is adequate for the business we had, and we need to find better solutions for when we do develop, get some economic development here and add more businesses down. So it'll be something we can discuss down the road.
Thank you. Question 7, beginning with Mark. What is your position on instituting a town manager for Haddam?
Don't need it.
56 seconds left. Okay, we'll move on to Joe, please.
Well, I'm going to go with Mark on that one. I don't think a town manager is needed. I like the the fact that we elect our first selectman. It's a member of our community, and I think that's best for a town our size. I will say, however, that the first selectman, we might want to think about whether or not the first selectman should be the director of public works, because they're not really a qualified person all the time to be the director of public works, and I think maybe that's where some of our infrastructure and road problems sort of stem from. We might need a professional there. We do have an assistant director that generally makes recommendations to the first selectman, but however, the first selectman is still the person who makes the final decisions. And so that might be something we would look into instead.
Thank you. Sean, your thoughts on town manager for Haddam?
No, I don't believe we need one. We're too small of a town. It's way too expensive. Take a look at Cromwell. I think it's $140,000 a year they're paying their town manager. It's a lot of money. I think we have more say as a electorate if we have a first selectman that we can decide to vote out, rather than a contractual employee that may or may not be easy to remove if they're not doing a good job. With a selectman, your vote counts. Perhaps going to a 4-year term, such as Middletown did as their mayor for the first selectman, because I think Bob touched on it. 2 years is kind of short. You're just getting going. So maybe a charter change to go to a 4-year first selectman. That way they can really get things going. You still have an opportunity to support that selectman or vote them out in 4 years.
Thank you. And Kate, please.
Oh boy, another committee I'm on. So I'm a current member of the Charter Revision Committee that's been tasked with looking at this. We've only had 3 meetings so far. The first one was just to elect the positions, and we did have a public hearing, and Mark and Sean both showed up and shared their thoughts. There are a lot of valid concerns. We would be one of the smallest, if not the smallest town. You lose the democratic process. It could be very expensive. You might lose the ability to get rid of that person if they're not working out, and who are they accountable to? So at our last meeting, we actually had the town manager from Hebron come talk to us, and also the first select woman of Clinton, who ran on the platform of moving Clinton to a town manager position. So as of right now, like I said, we've only had 3 meetings. I support the committee in continuing to research the option and make a viable recommendation. It's my job to look at this with an open mind. Right now, I am inclined to say no. I think it's too big of a change for us right now.
Now we'll go to the final question before the closing statements, and for Joe Rizzo first. Could you talk about the thing that is most positive about Haddam, and then the thing that you consider to be most negative?
Okay, I will end on the positive, so I'll do the negative first. The negative is the divide in town. As both of the first selectman candidates agreed upon, I'm sort of done with the stalemate meetings, as I wrote in my bio. They're embarrassing to watch, and they don't get anything done for our town. I have 2 strengths. Number 1 is the people. The people I met during this Save AGS group are wonderful, and one more is our outdoor resources. So, we're never going to be a Chester. We're not Essex. We're Haddam. And let's be Haddam. Let's use our outdoor resources to our benefit. It's a great way to bring people to town. Like Kate said, we have an active state. People want to participate in outdoor activities. We have it here. Let's just make it work. Thanks.
Sean Moriarty, positives and negatives.
Well, on the negative side, I think people could say the divide and the things on social media. That's actually a very small percentage of the people that are very negative. We're a pretty positive town. So I actually think our biggest negative is our tax burden. It's huge. And we need a clear, understandable, honest budget that people can read and not say, where are these numbers? Where are you showing the state aid? And where is that in your income? We need an honest budget and lower our tax burden. Positive are you guys, are the people. Man, when something bad happens in this town, we really do pull together no matter who you are. We all don't get along all the time. Just take a look at Facebook, but I can guarantee some of the people that don't agree with you on Facebook, if something was the matter, they would be there to help me and I would be there to help them. We are the strength of this town. We are the backbone. And that's fantastic. I love working and I love working for this town and I love living here because of you guys, because of the people here. Thank you.
Kate Anderson, positives and negatives.
So I think our greatest weakness right now is our communication. Not to say that we're not trying, but I think there's a wide gap in this town on how to reach people. And I'd really like to look at ways that we can reach both the younger generation and the older generation. I know it's hard for people to get to night meetings, so I'd like to look into a way that we can be more proactive and getting people involved. I think a lot of people sometimes feel left out and left behind, so I think if we can find a proactive way to share more information, share what's happening at these meetings, we might be able to come together a little bit quicker. As far as the positives, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it is really just the people. One of the reasons I join all these committees is because I've met so many wonderful people, and it's what keeps me going. I grew up on here. My boyfriend and I lived together. I brought him over from the dark side of Killingworth, and it's just, we love being here.
Mark Lundgren, positives and negatives.
Well, when people ask me where I'm from, I say Haddam, but I add a little phrase to it. I say Haddam with a river running through. That is so cool that we have this Connecticut River and we are on both sides of it. It gives me chills because it's such a plus that we have. The river, heck, I'm listening for the, don't yell at me, I'm listening for the steam train whistle also. That I think would be another boon to our town. These are good, positive things, but you know what? You are the people that make this town the town that I want to live the rest of my life in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We're going to move on to our closing statements, and these will be 2 minutes each. And the order will begin back to Mark, please.
Starting with me.
Starting with Mark.
I want to thank the library again. And I want to thank you for being here because, to me, this is a fantastic group of people that have got together. And if we can't do that more often, we should really try to do it. I left my most major thank you to last because of its importance. I want to thank the spouses of all these volunteers, office holders. God knows my Irish lassie has put up with a lot over the last 40 years. And their backing has made a lot of us able to volunteer. So you spouses, my hat's off to you. There's a lot of things I would like to do. There's some things, civic pride comes in small batches and it builds quickly. Simple things like pruning the bushes that are an invasive tree that's growing around the town hall. We don't think about that much, but if we take care of the little things, the big things will be a lot easier. I want to tell you that I'm having fun doing this. And the reason why I'm doing it is because I care so much about this town. I like to fish. I I like to garden, I like to take care of my miniature donkey. But I also like this town. And I like giving back. And with your help, I'll be able to do it for a couple of years more. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to Kate, please.
So the number one question I've been asked that didn't get asked tonight is, why in the world would you do this? And for me, I don't know anything else. I grew up in town. I grew up watching my dad volunteer. He was a basketball coach. He was Little League. He was Park and Rec. It took 2 hours to pick up a pizza from AJ's on a Friday night because he'd have to stop and talk to everybody he knew. So this is how I grew up. It just seemed natural for me. When I bought my house here, it was natural for me to continue doing this. I like to think he passed the torch to me. That's what we're about. We're a community. We're all in this together. We all want what's best for our community. We have a lot of projects coming up. We need a new public works garage. We have a jail. We have Scoville Hoe. We need septic. We have a swing bridge project coming up that's going to impact Tylerville and the ability to get in and out of there. We need somebody who has a knowledge of these projects, knowledge of how things work, who knows the municipal side and the private side, who has connections, who has relationships. But the other thing we need is volunteers. I've been on a number of committees, and I can count on one hand the number of times people have showed up for public comment. I'm sorry to see that it took closing HES to get people more involved, but now we're seeing a great turnout. We have an opportunity now to really make a difference. We have all these projects, we have the potential, but we need the collective knowledge of everybody working together. No one's going to be perfect, no one's going to have all the answers, but together we can get it done. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Sean, next, please.
I'd like to thank the library for hosting this forum and once again for everybody coming out. I look forward to speaking with you all at during the refreshment time after. When considering who to vote for, I'd ask you not to look at the letter following the names. We all have letters following our names here. And, don't look at those. We can get hung up on a party affiliation. See if the candidate's vision is your vision. Get to know them, learn them. It doesn't matter who endorses us. It matters what we stand for and whether you agree with that or not. I have the proven experience and ability to bring communities together, to bring diverse groups together, and to get them to work towards a common goal. And in this case, this is an affordable, enjoyable place to live and work. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Joe, please.
So I'd also like to thank the library again, and I'll give the library a little plug here. We have a fantastic library that's housed in a beautiful historic building, and they do a lot for our community to meet the needs of our community. It's so much more than just a place that offers books and computer access. There's a teen advisory board, children's story hour, playtime, craft nights, special events. All kinds of things there. So thank you so much for everything you do for the community. Running a town is not an easy task, and I want to be there. I will be there to assist our next first selectman, as well as be the link between all of you folks in our town and our board of selectmen. I believe I'm the best candidate to support our natural resources. With my environmental background, to bring people into town and use what we already have here. And those people will shop at our local businesses, then supporting our businesses, and we will get more business in town as a result of that. As most of you know, I ride a mountain bike. I've just started running as well, so I'm sort of an outdoorsy person. I know the area, and I'd love to show others. So if you want to use the resources that we already have and promote what we have here in town inexpensively and effectively, go out and vote on November 5th. Thank you.
And both Tom and I would like to thank all the candidates who showed up tonight. Candidates were running for other seats, so if you would rise, would you like to introduce some of them, or?
Representing Republicans, Wayne Ruddy, running for the Board of Finance. Dave Challenger, running for the Board of Finance. Dan Luisi, from Planning and Zoning. Okay, Dan. Prem Ithal, Board of Finance. Jen Favalero, Board of Education. Mark Elberg, Board of Finance. Peter Sonsky, Board of Education. Up there. And Alan Chadwick, Planning Zone Alternate. I think I've got everyone. Did anyone come in? I missed anyone? Who did I miss? I can't see, I'm sorry.
Dave Beckman.
Cataract surgery last week.
Dave Beckman, zoning.
Oh, Dave Beckman,
Assessment appeals.
assessment appeal. Oh, Shauna, I'm sorry. And we also have Shauna running for the Board of Ed.
And on the Democratic side?
Oh, I just Liz Suzazi, Planning and Zoning. If I can have all the Dems who are here who are running, please stand. Liz, won't stand. We have Tim Tarrant, Board of Finance. Yeah, sure. Large role. Why don't you all introduce yourselves? Liz Suzazi, Planning and Zoning. Yeah.
Liz Basazi, Planning and Zoning.
Eric Hessenberg, Zoning Board of Appeals.
Melissa Schlag, Board of Finance. Marge DeBold, Zoning Board of Appeals.
Tim Turan, Board of Finance.
Katie Pachter, I'm running for the Board of Ed.
Peter Baird, Planning and Zoning.
Hi, Jane Baird, running for Board of Education.
Garen Greenhold, Planning and Zoning.
Rachel Greenholtz, Board of Appeals alternate.
Have we missed any other? Are there independents or anybody that are not connected to a party? Hearing none, there are refreshments outside, and you also get a chance to meet the candidates and ask them more questions. Thank you so much for coming out today.
Behind me, I'm watching everyone. Yeah.